All right, welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Ghost Chevrolet. Every Wednesday, we catch up with Brody Miller, who covers the program for The Athletic. Also, a great podcast himself over at The Athletic. You can check on anywhere that you get your podcast. I listen to it over at Spotify, on Spotify. And he's here every Wednesday with us. Brody, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me as always, man.
Yeah, man, it's good to talk to you. Another players-only meeting. You hear that, you think what?
I think my honest answer is the way we react to players-only meetings are just probably a little, dramatic / inaccurate. Just I don't know about how you react. I don't mean you. But, they're just a quick meeting, and it's this thing. And to be clear, when I first started covering LSU, when I'd hear that, I'd be like, man, players-only meeting, get to the bottom of it. And it's every team has a players-only meeting at some point or two in the year. It's just a meeting to be hey, guys, get it together. Sure, maybe the 2018 Burrow, that one was there's some real tensions on that team. That one's real. I feel this one's more just I wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that you have leaders being hey, special teams is a problem. These little things and all these mistakes are a problem. That's if you're looking for a positive in it, that's the main thing Kelly's been trying to implement is a leadership structure where the leaders then can take it down to the team. So yeah, I mean, it just kind of is what it is, but I don't think a players only meeting is ever going to fix a problem necessarily.
They lost the left side of their offensive line last week, Friday night with Will Campbell, on Saturday with Garrett Dellinger. Where do they go this week?
Yeah, I thought Kelly's answer was really interesting and kind of just openly saying, I think it's going to be this tough give and take of, okay, is the Anthony Bradford might be at this very moment your best option at left tackle, but is the gain of him at left tackle versus the next guy better than the drop off from Bradford at guard to I don't know, Xavier Hill or whoever? That's the question you have to have because, Cam Wire's experience, sure, but Cam Wire has a lot of tape of him just really struggling. He's a fifth-year guy, and I think there comes a point where you have to be honest. He hasn't been very effective. Marcus Dumerville, it's hard for me to sit here and judge if he's ready because he's always kind of one of the next guys up in reps, but I've never seen him play real meaningful snaps, and I'd be lying to you if I knew. So, if you're asking me, I'd say probably the smartest move is Bradford at left tackle and probably Xavier Hill at guard. I think that makes the most sense to me, but I'm also not there in practice, and I don't know if they trust anyone else at tackle, quite frankly.
Yeah. Free Cardell Thomas.
If I had to do a power rankings of mailbag questions I've gotten the most over the years that I just I can't keep answering it, guys. It just is what it is.
Special teams. It seemed like that was top of the agenda on the latest players only meeting. What do you think could be worked out here? Is there any change that could be made that could instantly turn this thing or start to turn it in the right direction?
It's such a good question, and I'll ask if you have a great answer too, because special teams is such an area where, yeah, I think to some extent it might be not the right personnel guys on the field. But then Kelly gave this really strong answer of that guy's the best guy. These guys are the best guys, and I will defer to a head coach to some extent on that. But the issues are everywhere. It's every single field goal, extra point, punt return, punt, kickoff return. It's every single thing. That there's clearly, it's not I doubt it's some special team scheme thing, right? Maybe it is. I'm not smart enough to know. It's just there's something bizarre going on. There's a disconnect where I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's players, but it's hard to pinpoint literally what's wrong. So I have a hard time even figuring out what's right. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I mean, when I look at it, sometimes I think scheme, when I look at the punt team, it looks they're all kind of jumbled up together. It doesn't look like they stay in lanes. But then once they do get past the first level, it's missed tackles on what looks like, kind of athleticism and talent. And it's I think that those could be fixed. And that's what I was hoping that would come away from a special or a players only meeting that was featuring the special teams was be guys in that room that would just kind of raise their hand and say, hey, look, I want to play. I would like to be on the punt team, the kickoff team, whatever team that they could specifically help on.
and this is a half-baked theory that I think is probably wrong, but I'm interested by it. We talk so much about like, hey, this team has depth issues, all that. And I know starters kind of play some special teams, but in reality, special teams is where your depth is shown, right? That's really where you're seeing like that next guy who's going to play corner next year and all that. And I don't know if this is right, but I sometimes find myself wondering, is that where you're seeing the depth hole and all that, the roster mismanagement we're talking about of like, maybe they're just depth on special teams isn't where you want it, and it's showing there.
Yeah. Speaking back to the offensive line, Will Campbell, that sounds like that was a very scary episode on Friday night for not only him, his family, but his teammates and everybody around him. Have you been able to get any information on Campbell and what the future looks like for him?
Yeah, I was told that he did, just as Kelly suggested, but I was told that he did end up coming home from the hospital Monday, and everything is going well for him. All the tests have come back positive. Everything is promising, for lack of a better term. The part that I haven't necessarily gotten a good sense of is like when he might be able to return to the field and things like that. That's a little less clear to me, and if anyone else has info on that, I'm all ears. But yeah, no, his recovery is going well, and he is back from the hospital.
Also, a storyline that was on Monday. I mean, Brody, by the way, bro, incredible form with the microphone at Kelly's press conference, sneaking in, which was about a 12-second window, 3 just huge headline topic questions of Campbell, Dellinger, Perkins. I mean, like, I almost left. I looked at Katie. I was like, we can wrap it up.
That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
It's like, as well as I, like, the number one rule is, like, you're taught, like, don't ask multiple questions and what. Yes. But it was just good. But it was like we had, like, Dellinger. I think we've also set a little precedent of, like, you can ask the really quick injury question.
Yep.
Like, just to be like, hey, like, update, and then ask your question. I don't think I've ever done 3 in 1, but I talk obscenely fast already. So it was a nice, sufficient moment. Hey, my PER is off the charts.
Even an attaboy from the head coach as he kind of stepped away from the podium and gave you a head nod and a wink, almost like a gun and a wink.
Half mocking, but yeah.
That's right. But the Perkins.
Midwestern charm.
The Perkins answer, I thought, I gave reaction to it yesterday, and a lot of people that I saw and read the feedback thought that I melted and overblew what he said. But I thought that was an alarming. I really did, that Harold Perkins could be schemed off the field because of just how talented he is. What did you make of how he answered your presentation of Harold Perkins?
Yeah, I think I definitely understand where you're coming from on that. I don't think by any means I'd sit here and say you're wrong and you don't want your best players on the field. I think the only thing I'd say back is just kind of not arguing. But, like,
yeah,
he's talked from the jump of kind of like when you're a freshman, like it's a lot of, hey, you're putting him in this outside role and being like, you do these 2 things really well, go do them. And it's like, little bits of the playbook, things like that. That's a big part of easing a freshman in. And I think, it's one thing to have him thriving in that role, but to then be like, hey, now I need you to jump back another position, all that. I think that's a fair, like, line of thought process. I might disagree with it, and you might as well. Like, I don't know if it was the right call, but I totally understand that. And at the end of the day, as much as I'm with you, you want Perkins on the field. I don't think LSU lost this game because Harold Perkins wasn't on the field. I don't even think they lost this game because the defense actually, like, hung in there. They lost this game because they fell down 13-0 within, like, seconds on special teams errors, and the offense just had no ability to put itself even in the game.
What do you make of the offensive struggles last weekend?
Yeah, I think you do. It's unfair to not start with, you lost half your offensive line pretty quickly. Like, you do have to at least start with that. That took a lot. This O-line's actually played pretty, I'd say, above average this year, and then that took a huge hit. It's hard to ignore that. And then the other part of it, I think, just talking to a lot of people on the staff, I think there were a lot of things that we don't know of, like, missed assignments, missed blocks, missed wrong routes, stuff like that, like, we don't see that I think adds up a lot more than we realize. But then, I think there are issues. Like, there's some stuff with the scheme where you're just like, hey, they're not setting these guys up to succeed. There's nothing, the way we talk about Jimbo's offense, and I'm not comparing it, but, like, where everything feels strained. Like, nothing's just easy chunk yards that there's nothing smooth, right, that you see in modern football. LSU right now feels like it's there, where it has this kind of pro-style offense with a quarterback that maybe doesn't exactly suit it, and just none of it's quite a great marriage where, these playmakers aren't set up to necessarily have those easy yards. And, I think Kelly's right that they were set up to have to pass really early, and this O-line wasn't set up to to do that. But still, man, I think everyone takes blame here. Jane Daniels included, by the way. Jane Daniels' numbers look good, but he missed a lot of opportunities and limited them too.
We also heard Brian Kelly talk about Walker Howard, and you could see both in his body language and in the way that he presented his answer that they're really excited about Howard and what the future may hold. How do you expect him to develop? How do you expect his timeline maybe to develop is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I think that's a really good sign that they are so pleased with him. And I think, there clearly was like a corner turned right around like fall camp where it was like, all right, this guy's a really good player. He's healthy, all that. I think I still stand by you probably want him to redshirt this year. I know I say that because I think there's so many fans, and I don't know where you stand, of just like, you got to get the 5-star in the field. My colleague, Ari Wasserman, is the biggest believer of if you have a 5-star quarterback, you just have to play him, get him those reps, worry about the future. But I think like there's always like, one, I don't know if it's ever that simple, but also like you can mess with a young player. You can affect their longevity. Like you don't want him getting crushed or anything like that. You want him by the time he's on that field fully ready for it. And also, guys, this year is what it is. Like, it's not going to be a bad year. It's not going to be a year where you're like chasing huge goals. Not that I expect Walker Howard here 5 years, but why burn that red shirt? You can still play him 4 games. He can get some time. So I think he's progressing perfectly. And he's in a situation that next year, if he's progressing as they think, yeah, he probably wins that starting job now. I was pumping the brakes on that 6 months ago of like, I think Nuss wins that job next year, but Walker Howard's really good, and he might really go out and win that job next year. That's perfect, but don't rush it.
I thought Hannegriff had a very common sense tweet that he put out about the season and where expectations were.
Yes.
Like he usually does, very balanced and neutral in his delivery of a very common sensible
Franklin guy.
Yeah, tactic. It was spot on. Speaking of spot on, I was listening to Football and Grits this morning with you in Staples. And a lot of conversation about Alabama and Tennessee. This game has some relevance for the first time in what feels like forever. But the third Saturday in October means something. What do you expect this Saturday in Knoxville?
Man, I really can't wait, as you could probably tell by that podcast. I just think it's probably one of the best, just like, there's been a lot of great football games this year. It's one of the juiciest, just like, I want to see this go against this kind of matchups. And it's like, I think deep down, I probably think Tennessee gives them a really, really good shot, plays it really tough. At the end of the day, I think Alabama probably handles it by, 7 points, 10 points. I think that's fair and realistic. But I'm not confident because the one thing you can attack on Tennessee, in theory, is explosiveness in the passing game. You can probably get some big chunks. And Alabama's offense / the receivers, I think it's scheme and the receivers, haven't really been able to like take advantage of poor pass defenses. They're not getting that like separation you normally see from great Alabama offenses. So they're not dominating an explosive passing game. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a competitive game and Hendon Hooker might be the best offensive player on the field in this game. And him against Alabama's pass rush is going to be such a good chess match that I just can't wait to watch it because he is so good at handling pressure and all those things. So I think Hendon Hooker has a great game and makes it close, but default brain says Bama figures it out.
What are we terming Florida and LSU now with Kelly and Napier as the head? Is this the Woodward Bowl? I mean, how do we watch this? How do you measure this? Is this a game that will be every season that will kind of go back to this hiring process?
Yeah, the battle of the Scots, right? Strickland and Woodward, maybe that works. It's like, I wonder if this year this year will be obviously juicy because it's year one of it. But I almost wonder, like, you know as well as I, this battle is really going to be about where these two programs are at. I don't know, year 3, year 4. But I'm so wrapped up in this because it is this fascinating discussion of these are two very parallel coaches and kind of who they are, guys who learned how to be head coaches, learn process guys, program builders who learned how to win and then went to a bigger job. And it's like you could argue, Napier is Kelly, 15 years ago. And I love that discussion of would you rather, and LSU just had to deal with this, would you rather hire the guy who's hungry, chasing, and might be the next Saban Kelly type, but there's also a 20-30% variability that he just isn't and he doesn't work? Or do you hire a Kelly, and I know it's not one-to-one, but hire a Kelly who is what he is. He's a top 4 coach in college football, top 3 coach. But I don't know if he's quite as hungry. I don't know if, the growth is there, all that. It's a fascinating debate that I don't know the right answer, but we know Scott Woodward's answer was he wanted the guy who I know is an elite head coach. And I don't think there's a right or wrong here. That's why it makes it such a fun discussion.
What do you expect from LSU in this turnaround, in this traveling to the swamp here, first time with Brian Kelly? How do you expect this one to go?
I honestly really like this game for LSU in just a ton of ways. Like Florida's run defense has just been god-awful, quite frankly, this year. And, I wonder, LSU's run game is inconsistent, I think I'd say, and I really want to see, who's healthy on the O-line and all that. But if they can run the ball, that helps LSU big time. I like the idea of them defending Anthony Richardson. I think Matt House has proven when he has to come up with a game plan, he usually will hone that in pretty well. I really like LSU in this game. I think that I don't know about score or anything like that, but I think they win this one. I do.
Brody, thank you for your time this morning as always. We'll see you next Wednesday, and keep up the great work.
Thanks as always, guys. Take care.
All right, there he is, Brody Miller, checking in from The Athletic. At Brody A. Miller on Twitter is where you find him there on social media. Find him there. The Carpool Queen has walked in. She will join us on set. We'll reconfigure the set. Remember, daily, we're brought to you by RMB Builders. Get in touch with our construction crew, Rhett Bourgeois and his crew over at RMB Builders. Hit them on Instagram. The Instagram is on fire right now. All the social media, if you want to see some of the neighborhoods that they're working in, some of the capabilities that they have. Start to finish, they can build your dream home. They can also help you out with some reconstruction if you're looking for that. They got a lot of projects going on right now, but they are not too busy for you. Get in touch with them today. rmb-builders.com, rmb-builders.com. Follow them on Instagram. The Carpool Queen is here. We'll welcome her to the set next. The Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.